The rain felt like judgment, cold and relentless, as Amara Bennett stood outside the glass tower of Crawford Industries. Her soaked purple coat clung to her body, her beautiful dark skin glistening with rainwater. Her hair, once carefully styled that morning, now hung in wet curls against her face. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows she could see the reception area, all marble and gold fixtures, a world so far removed from the shelter where her 2 children waited that it might as well have been another planet. She had 30 days. 30 days before the eviction became final. 30 days before she lost the last connection to the life she'd built with her late husband, Marcus. No, not Marcus. Daniel. His name was Daniel, and he'd been gone for 18 months, taken by a construction accident that left her with 2 children, a mountain of medical debt, and a future that seemed to shrink by the hour. Inside the lobby, a woman in a designer dress stormed past the security desk, her heels clicking like gunshots on the marble floor. Even from outside, Amara could hear her raised voice. "Tell Ethan Crawford he's making a mistake. I'm the perfect match for him. My family's connections alone would be worth billions." The security guard, an older white man with kind eyes, simply held the door open. "Have a good evening, Miss Price." "Perfect match," the woman spat. "He needs a wife, doesn't he? His grandmother's will requires it. I'm offering him exactly what he needs, and he has the audacity to say no." Amara's heart stopped. She pressed closer to the window, rain running down her face like tears she was too exhausted to cry. A wife. He needed a wife. The socialite disappeared into a waiting car, and Amara stood frozen, her mind racing. The security guard noticed her through the glass. He came to the door, opening it slightly. "Miss, are you all right? Do you need to come inside?" The man she was talking about, Amara heard herself say, her voice barely a whisper. "Ethan Crawford. Is he here?" The guard studied her, taking in her soaked clothes, the desperation in her eyes. Something in his expression softened. "Top floor." "But miss, he doesn't take unscheduled meetings." "Please," Amara said, and the word came out broken. "I have to try." Maybe it was the rain. Maybe it was something he saw in her face. But the guard stepped aside. "Elevator on the right. Tell the receptionist Gary sent you." Amara didn't let herself think. She thought she'd run. She'd go back to the shelter, hold her babies, and accept whatever fate handed them. But hope, that dangerous thing, had sparked in her chest. She moved through the lobby, leaving wet footprints on the perfect floor, and pressed the button for the top floor. The elevator ride felt eternal. Her reflection stared back at her from the polished walls. She looked like someone who had nothing, which was exactly what she was. When the doors opened, a receptionist looked up, her perfectly made-up face showing surprise. "I need to see Ethan Crawford," Amara said. "Do you have an appointment?" "Gary sent me." The receptionist's expression shifted. She picked up her phone, spoke quietly, then nodded. "Mr. Crawford will see you. But you have 5 minutes." Amara walked down the hallway, her wet shoes squeaking slightly. At the end of the hall, double doors stood open. Inside, a man sat behind a massive desk, his white skin pale in the office lights, his dark hair slightly disheveled as if he'd been running his hands through it. He looked tired. More than tired. He looked like a man going through motions he no longer believed in. Ethan Crawford looked up as she entered. His blue eyes widened slightly, taking in her soaked appearance. "Who are you?" "My name is Amara Bennett," she said, and her voice was steadier than she expected. "And I heard you need a wife." Ethan stood slowly. He was tall, dressed in an expensive suit with the tie loosened. "Excuse me? I heard the woman in your lobby. She said you need to marry to fulfill your grandmother's will." She offered herself as the perfect match. Amara took a breath. "I'm not perfect. I'm not connected. I don't have billions or social standing. But I'm honest and I need help." "This is absurd," Ethan said, but he didn't call security. "Why would I marry a stranger?" "Because every woman you know wants your money or your status. They'll pretend to love you. They'll say what you want to hear." Amara stepped closer, water dripping onto his expensive carpet. "I won't. I need a home for my children. I need security. I need to not be terrified every second of every day. You need a wife on paper. I can be that. No lies. No games. Just an arrangement that helps us both." Ethan stared at her. Outside, thunder rumbled. "You're serious?" "I'm desperate," Amara corrected. "There's a difference. Desperate people don't have the luxury of pride." "You have children?" "2. Caleb is 8. Nina is 6. They're good kids. They're quiet. They won't bother you. We'll stay out of your way. You can live your life." We'll just need a place to stay and basic expenses. That's all. That's all, Ethan repeated, and something that might have been humor flickered in his eyes. You're asking for very little. I'm asking for everything, Amara said quietly. But to you it's very little. That's the truth. Silence stretched between them. Ethan walked to his window looking out at the city. My grandmother wanted me to know love. She thought if I married, I'd find what she had with my grandfather. Then I'm sorry. I can't give you that. Amara's shoulders slumped. I loved my husband. When he died, that part of me died too. I can't pretend otherwise. Good, Ethan said, turning back to her. Because I don't believe in love anymore either. Everyone wants something. At least you're honest about what that is. Amara's heart pounded. Is that a yes? Ethan studied her for a long moment. This beautiful, soaked, desperate woman standing in his office, asking for a transaction when everyone else offered him fairy tales. Something about her directness cut through years of cynicism. On one condition, he said. If I do this, you take what I offer. No pride. No refusing help because you think you should struggle. If you need something for those kids, you ask. Agreed. Amara's throat tightened. Agreed. Then yes, Ethan Crawford said, and with one word changed both their lives. I'll marry you. Have you ever wondered if the most practical decisions could lead to the most unexpected love? If you're curious to see how Amara and Ethan's arrangement transforms into something neither of them expected, subscribe to follow their journey. Drop a comment below. Would you accept help from a stranger if it meant saving your family? 48 hours later, Amara stood in a courthouse wearing a simple green dress she'd bought from a discount store. Her children sat in the front row, Caleb in a button-up shirt that was slightly too small, Nina in a yellow dress with a small stain on the hem that Amara had tried unsuccessfully to remove. Jordan Mitchell, Ethan's business partner, stood as witness, his expression unreadable. The ceremony took 7 minutes. When the judge pronounced them husband and wife, Ethan didn't kiss her. They shook hands, a formal gesture that made the whole thing feel surreal. But the paper was signed, legal and binding. Amara was now Amara Crawford, though the name felt like a costume she'd put on. Car's waiting, Ethan said, his voice neutral. He'd barely looked at her during the ceremony. They walked out of the courthouse into bright sunlight. A black car waited at the curb, a driver holding the door open. Nina grabbed Amara's hand, her small fingers trembling. Mama, is this really happening? She whispered. Yes, baby, Amara said, lifting her daughter into the car. This is real. The drive to Ethan's house took 20 minutes, winding through neighborhoods that grew progressively wealthier until they pulled through iron gates into a property that made Amara's breath catch. The mansion was white stone with tall windows, surrounded by gardens that looked like something from a magazine. It wasn't home. It was a museum. Ethan got out first and Jordan clapped him on the shoulder. You're sure about this? Too late now, Ethan said, but there was no humor in his voice. Inside, the house was even more impressive. Marble floors, high ceilings, artwork that probably cost more than Amara had made in her entire life. A housekeeper, an older Hispanic woman with gentle eyes, greeted them. Mrs. Rosa will show you to your rooms, Ethan said, already moving toward what Amara assumed was his study. If you need anything, ask her. Wait, Amara called out. Rooms? As in multiple? Ethan turned back, one eyebrow raised. Did you think we'd share? This is an arrangement, remember? You'll have the east wing. I'm in the west. The children can have rooms near yours. Amara felt Caleb stiffen beside her. Her son had barely spoken since they left the courthouse, processing everything with the quiet intensity he'd developed since his father died. Nina, however, was staring around with wide eyes, taking in the chandelier, the staircase, the sheer size of everything. Okay, Amara said finally. That's fine. Ethan's expression flickered with something, but he nodded and disappeared down a hallway. Mrs. Rosa smiled warmly. Come, I show you. You will like the rooms. Mr. Crawford, he made sure everything is ready. They followed her up a curved staircase. The east wing had 5 bedrooms, each one larger than the entire apartment Amara had shared with Daniel and the kids. Mrs. Rosa opened the first door, revealing a room painted soft blue with a large bed, a desk, and a window overlooking the gardens. For the young man, Mrs. Rosa said. Mr. Crawford said the boy likes to read, so he put in good lighting. Caleb's eyes widened. How did he know that? He asked me, Amara said quietly, surprised. During their brief meeting to arrange details, Ethan had asked about the children. She hadn't thought he was actually listening. The next room was pink and yellow with a small stage area in the corner. Nina gasped. Mama, is that for dancing? Mr. Crawford said the little one likes to perform, Mrs. Rosa said, her smile deepening. So he made a stage. Amara felt her throat tighten. This cold, distant man had paid attention to details about children he didn't know, children who were now technically his responsibility. The master bedroom in the east wing was the largest, decorated in calming creams and soft greens. A bathroom connected to it, all marble and gold fixtures. Amara's few belongings brought over that morning looked lost in the massive closet. I know it's big, Mrs. Rosa said gently, seeing Amara's overwhelmed expression. But you will get used to it. Mr. Crawford, he is a good man. Quiet but good. Thank you, Amara managed. That first night was strange. Mrs. Rosa prepared dinner, a beautiful spread that the four of them ate in awkward silence at one end of a dining table that could seat 20. Ethan answered Caleb's polite questions about the house with brief responses. He told Nina she could use the stage whenever she wanted. But mostly he seemed eager for the meal to end. I have work, he said finally, standing. Mrs. Rosa will help you with anything you need. Good night. And he was gone. Nina looked at Amara with confused eyes. Is he nice, Mama? He's helping us, Amara said carefully. That's what matters. But that night, lying in the huge bed in her new room, Amara couldn't sleep. She kept expecting to wake up, to find herself back in the shelter. This all just a dream. She thought about Daniel, about the life they'd planned that had been ripped away. This wasn't that life. This wasn't love or partnership or any of the things she'd imagined marriage would be. But her children were safe. They had beds. They had food. Tomorrow Caleb would start at a good school, one Ethan had arranged. Nina would have her dance classes. Amara had kept her promise to keep them safe, even if the method was unconventional. Down the hall, in the West Wing, Ethan sat at his desk, unable to focus on the contracts in front of him. He kept thinking about the woman and children now living in his house. He'd built this place 5 years ago, filled it with expensive things, but it had never felt like anything but a showcase. Tonight, with voices echoing through the halls, with Nina's laughter when she saw her stage, with Caleb's careful thank you at dinner, something had shifted. He'd told Amara the truth. He didn't believe in love. His parents had died when he was 12, a car accident that shattered his world. His grandmother had raised him, taught him about business, about legacy. But she'd also been lonely, widowed young, and she'd made him promise to find someone to build a family, to not let work consume him the way it had consumed his grandfather. He tried. He dated. But every woman saw dollar signs. They performed affection, calculated their moves. It had made him cold, cynical. Amara hadn't performed anything. She'd stood in his office, soaked and desperate, and told him exactly what she needed. No games. No pretense. Maybe this arrangement would work precisely because neither of them expected anything beyond the practical. At least that's what he told himself. The next morning Ethan woke early as always. He went for his usual run through the property, then returned to find the kitchen filled with sounds and smells he hadn't experienced in years. Amara stood at the stove making breakfast. Caleb sat at the island doing homework. Nina was singing softly to herself, coloring. Amara looked up when he entered. Good morning. I hope you don't mind. Mrs. Rosa isn't here yet and the kids needed breakfast. It's your kitchen too, Ethan said, then felt awkward for saying it. Sit down, Amara said. I made extra. It wasn't a request exactly, but it wasn't an order either. Ethan found himself sitting at the island, accepting a plate of eggs and toast. It was simple food, nothing like the elaborate meals his personal chef usually prepared. But it tasted like something he couldn't quite name. Tasted like home. The first month passed in careful routines. Ethan left for work before the children woke and returned after they were in bed. Amara managed the household with quiet efficiency, working with Mrs. Rosa to keep everything running smoothly. They were like roommates who happened to share a last name, orbiting around each other without ever quite touching. But small things began to change. It started with coffee. Ethan came down one morning to find a cup waiting for him, prepared exactly how he liked it. Strong, no sugar, just a splash of cream. He looked at Amara, who was packing Caleb's lunch. Mrs. Rosa mentioned how you take it, she said without looking up. Figured I'd save you the trouble. It was practical, nothing more. But something about walking into the kitchen and finding coffee waiting felt different than making it himself. A week later, Ethan noticed Amara struggling with the home computer system. He'd had the whole house automated, lights and temperature and security all controlled through tablets. She was frowning at the screen, trying to adjust the heat in Nina's room. Here, he said, coming up behind her. He reached around, his hand covering hers on the tablet, and showed her the right menu. He was close enough to smell her perfume, something light and floral. This button controls individual rooms. Thank you, Amara said, and her voice was slightly breathless. She stepped away quickly. I'll remember that. The kids became the bridge between them. Nina, naturally friendly, started seeking Ethan out. She'd wait by the door when he came home, wanting to show him a new dance move or a drawing from school. At first, Ethan didn't know what to do with this small person demanding his attention. But something about her pure enthusiasm was impossible to resist. Watch this, Mr. Ethan, she'd say, then perform some elaborate spin that usually ended with her dizzy and giggling. It's just Ethan, he told her one evening. You don't have to call me Mr. Okay, just Ethan, Nina said seriously, and he found himself smiling for the first time in months. Caleb was harder to reach. The boy was polite but distant, his dark eyes watchful. He reminded Ethan of himself at that age, already learning to protect his heart. One evening, Ethan found Caleb in the library, staring at the chess set on the side table. Do you play? Ethan asked. Caleb shrugged. My dad was teaching me. Before he died. The words hung unspoken between them. I could teach you the rest, Ethan offered. If you want. Caleb studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Okay. They started playing twice a week. Caleb was smart, picking up strategies quickly. Ethan found himself looking forward to those games, to the quiet companionship that didn't require complicated emotions. Just two people, a board between them, thinking through moves. Amara watched these interactions from a distance. She'd expected Ethan to ignore the children, to treat them as obligations. Instead, he showed up. He listened when Nina chattered about her day. He patiently explained chess strategies to Caleb. He even helped with homework once, sitting at the kitchen table going over math problems with a focus that surprised her. You're good with them, she said one night after the children were in bed. She'd come downstairs for water and found Ethan in the kitchen, looking through files on his laptop. He glanced up, startled. They're good kids. They like you. That's surprising? Amara leaned against the counter. A little. You didn't seem like someone who wanted children around. I didn't think I did, Ethan admitted. But they're easy to be around. They don't want anything from me except attention. Attention is everything, Amara said softly. It's what they lost when Daniel died. Having an adult who shows up, who listens, that matters more than you know. Ethan closed his laptop. You loved him. Your husband. Very much. What was he like? Amara smiled, though it held sadness. Funny. Hardworking. He sang off-key in the shower and told terrible jokes. He coached Caleb's soccer team and had tea parties with Nina. He was a good man who died too young. I'm sorry, Ethan said, and meant it. Me too. Amara studied him. Your grandmother meant a lot to you. She was everything after my parents died. Stern but loving. She built the company from nothing and she taught me how to run it. But she also made sure I knew that business wasn't life. That connection mattered. He paused. I disappointed her by not finding that connection. You honored her by marrying, Amara pointed out. A technicality. Not what she meant. They stood in the quiet kitchen, two people brought together by loss and necessity, beginning to see each other as something more than an arrangement. Amara finished her water and moved toward the stairs. Ethan? He looked at her. Thank you. For all of this. For my kids. You didn't have to be kind, but you are. That means something. Before he could respond, she was gone, leaving him alone with thoughts that were becoming increasingly complicated. The next week, Jordan came for dinner. It was the first time Ethan had invited anyone over since the marriage, and Amara fussed over the meal, wanting everything perfect. She wore a red dress that brought out the warmth in her skin, her hair styled in soft curls. When Jordan arrived, his surprise was evident. This is domestic, he said to Ethan in the hallway. You hosting dinner? In your home. With your family. It's just dinner, Ethan said. It's weird, Jordan countered. Good weird. But weird. Dinner was surprisingly pleasant. Jordan was charming, telling stories that made the children laugh. Amara relaxed as the evening went on, her smile coming easier. Ethan watched her interact with his oldest friend, saw how genuine she was, how she didn't put on airs or pretend to be someone she wasn't. After dinner, while the kids watched a movie in the den, the three adults sat in the living room with coffee. So, Jordan said, looking between them. How's married life? Fine, Ethan said at the same time Amara said, good. Jordan grinned. Convincing. Look, I know this started as a business arrangement, but Ethan, this place feels different. You feel different. It's just having people around, Ethan said dismissively. It's more than that. Jordan looked at Amara. You've done something to him. Made him almost human again. Amara laughed. I just cook and keep the house running. That's our deal. Your deal, Jordan repeated, then shook his head. Whatever you say. But from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're building something real here. After Jordan left, Ethan found Amara in the kitchen, cleaning up despite Mrs. Rose's insistence that she'd handle it in the morning. You didn't have to do all this, he said. The dinner. Entertaining. Jordan's your friend. It felt right to make him welcome. She dried a plate carefully. He's nice. He cares about you. He thinks we're falling for each other, Ethan said bluntly. Amara's hands stilled. Are we? The question hung between them, dangerous and electric. Ethan stepped closer and Amara's breath caught. For a moment they just looked at each other, awareness crackling in the air. Then Caleb called from upstairs, needing help with something, and the moment broke. Amara hurried away, leaving Ethan alone with a truth he wasn't ready to name. They were becoming something more than an arrangement. And that terrified them both. Spring arrived, bringing longer days and warmer weather. The gardens burst into bloom, and Nina spent hours playing outside while Caleb practiced soccer on the lawn. The house felt different, alive in ways it hadn't been before. Ethan noticed it most when he came home from work to find all the windows open, fresh air flowing through rooms that had always felt too still. One Saturday he came downstairs to find Amara in the kitchen, teaching Nina how to make cookies. Flour dusted both of them and Nina's laughter filled the space. Something in Ethan's chest tightened, watching them together, this picture of simple happiness. "Want to help?" Amara asked, catching him watching. "I don't bake." "Neither did I until I had kids." She held out a mixing spoon. "Come on. It's not complicated." He found himself in the kitchen, following her instructions, feeling slightly ridiculous but unable to leave. Nina took charge immediately, telling him exactly how to stir, criticizing his technique with the confidence of a 6-year-old who knew everything. "You have to mix it until it's smooth," she instructed. "Like this." When the cookies were done, they sat at the kitchen island eating them warm, and Ethan couldn't remember the last time he'd felt this relaxed in his own home. Amara's phone buzzed and she checked it, her expression clouding. "Everything okay?" Ethan asked. "Just a reminder about Caleb's school supplies. They need a new batch of notebooks and things for next term." She bit her lip. "I was going to ask Mrs. Rosa about the budget for it." "There's no budget," Ethan said, confused. "Just buy what he needs. I don't want to overstep. We agreed I'd ask for things. And I'm telling you to get whatever the kids need. School supplies, clothes, activities. You don't need permission." He pulled out his wallet, extracting a credit card. "Here. For household expenses. Use it." Amara stared at the card like it might bite her. "Ethan, that's too much. It's practical. You're managing the household. You should have access to funds." He pressed it into her hand. "No arguments. Remember our deal? You agreed not to refuse help." She closed her fingers around the card and Ethan saw moisture in her eyes. Such a small thing, a credit card, but he understood what it represented. Security. The ability to provide for her children without fear. "Thank you," she whispered. That evening, after the kids were asleep, Ethan found Amara on the back patio. She sat on the steps, looking out at the garden lit by soft outdoor lights. He joined her, keeping a respectful distance. "Can I ask you something?" she said after a while. "Sure. Why did you really agree to this? The marriage. You could have found 100 women willing to marry you to fulfill your grandmother's will. Why say yes to me?" Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Everyone else wanted to change their answer to fit what they thought I wanted to hear. They performed the role of perfect wife. "You just told me the truth. You needed help and you weren't ashamed to say it. That honesty was worth more than any performance." "I was drowning," Amara admitted. "After Daniel died, everything fell apart. The medical bills from his accident, the funeral costs, trying to keep the apartment, feed the kids. I worked 3 jobs and it still wasn't enough. The day I came to your office, we'd been told we had to leave the shelter in a week. I had nowhere to go. I was one step from living in my car with my children." Ethan's jaw tightened. "I didn't realize it was that bad. Why would you? You lived in a different world." She looked at him. "Still do, really. But you let us into it. You gave us safety. That's something I can never repay. I don't want repayment. That's not what this is." "Then what is it?" Ethan searched for words. My grandmother used to say that houses become homes when you fill them with people you care about. I'd given up on that. This place was just where I slept. But now, he gestured at the lit windows, the sounds of life. Now it feels different. Because of us? Because of you, he corrected. All three of you. You made this a home. Amara's hand moved slightly toward his, then stopped. The air between them felt charged, full of possibility and fear. Neither moved to close the distance, but neither moved away either. I should go to bed, Amara said finally, standing. Early morning tomorrow. Good night, Amara. Good night. But she paused at the door, looking back. Ethan? I care about you. As a friend. I want you to know that. Whatever this is, you're not just the man who helped us. You're becoming someone important to us. She left before he could respond, but her words stayed with him long into the night. The following week, Ethan invited Amara to accompany him to a charity event. It was for a foundation supporting youth education, something his company sponsored. He'd normally attend alone, but Jordan had pointed out that showing up with his wife would look good for the company image. Amara hesitated. I don't have anything appropriate to wear to something like that. Then we'll get you something. He said it matter-of-factly, like buying a formal dress was as simple as picking up groceries. They went shopping together, an experience Ethan had never had before. Amara tried on several dresses, each one making her more beautiful than the last. But when she emerged in a deep blue gown that matched her eyes and complemented her dark skin perfectly, Ethan forgot to breathe. This one, he said, his voice rougher than intended. Definitely this one. At the event, people stared. Amara was stunning, poised despite her nervousness. Ethan found himself proud to have her on his arm, proud of how she handled conversations with donors and board members, never pretending to know things she didn't, but engaging genuinely. During dinner, he watched her discuss education programs with a school principal, her passion for helping kids evident in every word. This was who she was, he realized. Someone who cared deeply, who wanted to make things better for children like her own. Your wife is remarkable, the principal said to Ethan later. She should consider getting involved with our literacy program. I'm not qualified, Amara protested. You're a mother who cares about education. That's all the qualification you need. On the drive home, Amara was quiet, processing. Did you mean what you said? She finally asked. About me getting involved with the literacy program? If you want to. Why not? Because I'm just. She stopped. I'm just me. I don't have degrees or credentials. You have experience raising good kids. You have empathy. You want to help. Ethan glanced at her. That's worth more than credentials sometimes. Amara smiled and it transformed her face. Thank you for tonight. For the dress, for taking me. For making me feel like I belong there. You did belong there. And Ethan meant it. When they got home, Mrs. Rosa reported that the kids were asleep. Everything went smoothly. They stood in the foyer, neither quite ready to separate to their respective wings. Amara, Ethan said. Yes. I'm glad you knocked on my office door that night. I'm glad you asked me for help. Whatever this arrangement was supposed to be, I'm grateful it brought you here. She stepped closer, looking up at him. Me too. For a heartbeat, they stood close enough to kiss. Ethan's hand lifted slightly, almost touching her face. But then Amara stepped back, fear flickering across her features. Good night, she whispered and fled upstairs. Ethan stood alone in the foyer, his hands still raised, feeling the ghost of what almost happened. They were crossing lines they'd drawn, moving into territory neither had planned for. And he was starting to realize he wanted to cross them completely. The days developed a rhythm that felt natural, unforced. Ethan started coming home earlier, timing his arrival for dinner. These meals became the center of their day, all four of them gathered around the table, sharing stories and laughter. Nina always had something dramatic to report from school, performing each detail with gestures. Caleb was quieter, but his contributions were thoughtful, and Ethan found himself genuinely interested in this kid's observations about the world. One evening, Caleb mentioned that his school was organizing a father-son soccer game. He said it casually, but Amara caught the longing in his voice. Before she could respond, Ethan spoke. I could go. If you want. Caleb's head snapped up. Really? Sure. I played soccer in college. I'm probably rusty, but I can kick a ball around. The smile that broke across Caleb's face was worth everything. That would be great. Saturday arrived, and Ethan found himself on a soccer field surrounded by dads and their sons. He felt out of place initially, but Caleb stuck close to him, explaining the drills, and soon Ethan was caught up in the game. They won barely, and Caleb was ecstatic. Did you see that goal? He asked on the drive home, practically bouncing. We worked together perfectly. You're good, Ethan told him honestly. Really good. Have you thought about joining a league? Those cost money. Not anymore, they don't. Amara, who'd come to watch, caught Ethan's eye in the rearview mirror. Her expression held gratitude and something deeper, warmer. That night, after the kids were in bed, she found him in his study. He looked up from his laptop as she knocked on the open door. Thank you for today, she said. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to. Caleb's a great kid. He deserves to play soccer if he loves it. Amara moved into the room, sitting in the chair across from his desk. You're becoming his hero. You know that, right? I'm just showing up. That's what heroes do. They show up when it matters. She hesitated. Daniel would have liked you. The comment surprised him. Yeah. He was a lot like you actually. Quiet. Thoughtful. He showed love through actions rather than words. The way you've been with the kids, helping without making it a big deal, that's exactly what he would have done. I'm not trying to replace him, Ethan said quickly. I know. But you're giving them something they needed, a positive male presence. That's a gift. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, and then Amara noticed the papers on his desk. What are you working on? Reviewing proposals for the Foundation's next project. We're trying to decide between funding a new community center or expanding the scholarship program. Can I see? Ethan passed her the folder, surprised. She read through carefully, asking questions that showed she understood the complexities. Her perspective, coming from someone who'd been poor, who knew what it was like to need help, was valuable. She pointed out things he'd missed, considerations about access and dignity. You should be on the foundation board, Ethan said when they finished. Amara laughed. Right. Me on a board. I'm serious. You have insight our current board members lack. You've lived the reality of what we're trying to address. I'll think about it, she said, but he could see the idea pleased her. This became another new routine. Several nights a week, Amara would join him in the study after the kids slept, reviewing foundation work, offering input. She started developing ideas for programs, particularly around supporting single parents. Ethan watched her come alive discussing these possibilities, her passion infectious. One night, she fell asleep in the chair, papers on her lap. Ethan looked up from his computer to find her head tilted to the side, breathing deep and even. She looked peaceful, younger without the worry lines that usually creased her forehead. He stood quietly, carefully removing the papers, then grabbed a blanket from the couch and draped it over her. He stood there longer than necessary, just watching her sleep, and realized something that terrified him. He was falling in love with his wife. The wife he'd married as a business arrangement. The wife who'd made clear she couldn't love again. The wife who was supposed to stay safely in one wing while he occupied the other. Except none of that was true anymore. They'd crossed every line they'd drawn, slowly and inevitably. They were building a family. They cared about each other. And somewhere along the way, his feelings had shifted from respect to something far more dangerous. Amara stirred, blinking awake. Sorry? I fell asleep. It's okay. It's late. You should go to bed. She stood, stretching, and the blanket fell away. Were you working this whole time? Mostly thinking. About? About you, he wanted to say. About how you've changed everything. About how I don't know how to protect myself from caring too much. Foundation stuff, he said instead. Nothing important. Amara looked at him for a long moment, and he wondered if she could see the truth in his eyes. But she just nodded. Good night, Ethan. Good night. She left, and Ethan sat back down, but he couldn't focus on work. All he could think about was her, asleep in his study, trusting him enough to be vulnerable. He'd never wanted to wake someone with a kiss more in his life. The next weekend they took the kids to an amusement park. It was Nina's idea, something she'd been begging for, and Amara had hesitantly suggested it to Ethan. To her surprise, he'd agreed immediately. The park was crowded, full of families and noise and color. Nina wanted to ride everything, dragging them from attraction to attraction. Caleb acted too cool for the kiddie rides but couldn't hide his excitement on the roller coasters. And Ethan, usually so serious, laughed as Nina shrieked on the spinning teacups. At one point, they were waiting in line for cotton candy, Ethan holding Nina's hand while Caleb talked to Amara about the next ride. A woman nearby smiled at them. Beautiful family, she said to Amara. Thank you, Amara replied automatically, then realized what the woman assumed. That they were together, really together. A family. And the scary part was how natural it felt. On the drive home, both kids fell asleep in the back seat. Ethan glanced at them in the rearview mirror. They're good kids. They really like you. I really like them. He paused. I like you too. Amara's breath caught. Ethan. I know. We have an arrangement. We're not supposed to feel things. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. But I'm starting to think that's impossible. You can't live with someone, build a life with them, and not feel something. What are you saying? I'm saying I don't know what this is anymore. But it's not just an arrangement. Not for me. Amara was quiet for a long moment. I'm scared, she finally admitted. I loved Daniel so much. When he died, it almost destroyed me. I can't go through that again. I'm not asking you to. I'm just saying what's true. He looked at her. I care about you, Amara. About all of you. And I think you care about me too. I do, she whispered. But I don't know what to do with that. Neither do I. But maybe we don't have to figure it out right now. Maybe we just keep doing what we're doing and see where it goes. They pulled into the driveway and the conversation ended as they carried sleeping children inside. But something had shifted. They'd acknowledged what was growing between them, named it without defining it. And that acknowledgement changed everything. Can love grow from an arrangement meant only for survival? If you're invested in Amara and Ethan's journey toward something real, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what happens next. Comment below, do you think they'll find true love, or will fear keep them apart? The gala was a bigger deal than Amara had anticipated. Crawford Industries' annual charity event attracted the city's elite, business leaders, and socialites who treated it as a competition for who could look most impressive. Ethan had mentioned it casually, but now, getting ready, Amara felt nerves flutter in her stomach. She'd chosen a gown the color of midnight blue, elegant but not flashy, with her hair swept up to show the graceful line of her neck. When she came downstairs, Ethan was waiting in the foyer, and the look on his face made her breath catch. You look stunning, he said, and his voice held something raw, unguarded. Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself. He did. The tuxedo fit him perfectly, making him look powerful and sophisticated. But it was the way he looked at her that made Amara's heart race, like she was the only person in the world. The drive to the venue was quiet, both of them processing what this night meant. They'd be seen together publicly as a married couple, playing a role that was becoming less of a role every day. Inside, the ballroom was elaborate, all crystal chandeliers and elaborate floral arrangements. People turned to look as they entered, whispers following them. Ethan placed his hand on the small of Amara's back, a possessive gesture that sent warmth through her. You'll do fine, he murmured. Just be yourself. The evening passed in a whirl of introductions. Amara met board members, investors, and charity organizers. Some were warm and welcoming. Others were coolly assessing, clearly wondering who this woman was that Ethan Crawford had married so suddenly. She handled it all with grace, falling back on the honesty that had brought her this far. When people asked how they met, she told a simplified version of the truth. They'd met during a difficult time in her life and he'd helped her. When they asked about her background, she didn't pretend to be something she wasn't. She'd been a struggling single mother. She still was, just with more resources now. Most people responded positively to her straightforwardness. But not everyone. Amara Crawford, a smooth voice said behind her. She turned to find a beautiful woman with perfect makeup and an expression that managed to be friendly and cold simultaneously. I'm Vanessa Price. I don't think we've met. The name triggered recognition. The woman from Ethan's office building, the one who'd been rejected before Amara arrived. Nice to meet you, Amara said carefully. I was surprised to hear about Ethan's marriage. We'd been seeing each other, on and off for years. Vanessa's smile didn't reach her eyes. I suppose timing is everything. I suppose so. He never mentioned wanting to get married when we were together. But I imagine his grandmothers will change that. Vanessa took a sip of champagne. Smart of you to be there at the right moment. The implication was clear. Amara was a gold digger, someone who'd taken advantage. Excuse me, Amara said, refusing to engage. She moved away, but Vanessa's words stung. Was that what people thought? That she'd manipulated her way into Ethan's life? She found refuge near the silent auction tables, pretending to examine the items while she steadied herself. Ethan appeared beside her moments later. Everything okay? Fine. He studied her face, then looked around, spotting Vanessa across the room. Did she say something to you? Nothing I couldn't handle. Amara. She implied I married you for money. That I took advantage of your grandmother's requirements. She met his eyes. Did I? You asked for help. I offered it. That's not taking advantage. His jaw tightened. Vanessa and I were never serious. She wanted the lifestyle and status. When I told her I wasn't interested, she didn't take it well. She said you were seeing each other for years. Casually. And it ended before you showed up in my office. He moved closer. Don't let her get in your head. She doesn't matter. But before Amara could respond, a man approached them, a business rival Ethan had mentioned. Richard something, owner of a competing firm. Crawford, the man said with false warmth. And this must be the mysterious wife. Quite a catch, Ethan. Though I heard she came with quite a sob story. Ethan's expression went cold. Excuse me? Oh, come on. Everyone knows. She showed up desperate, needing a home for her kids, and you swooped in like a hero. Very generous of you. Though some might say reckless, tying yourself legally to someone so far beneath your station. The words hung in the air like a slap. Around them, nearby conversations stopped, people watching to see what would happen. Amara felt humiliation burn through her, the old shame of being poor, of needing help, rising up despite all her efforts to keep it buried. But before she could speak, Ethan stepped forward, his voice deadly quiet. Let me make something very clear. My wife came to me during a difficult time and asked for help, which took more courage than you've shown in your entire life. She's smart, kind, and stronger than anyone in this room. If you think her background makes her beneath anyone, then you're the one who doesn't belong here. He took Amara's hand, lacing his fingers through hers. And if I hear another word from you or anyone else questioning my wife or my choices, you'll find out exactly how protective I can be. Are we clear? Richard's face reddened. Of course. I meant no offense. Yes, you did. Now get out of my sight. The man retreated and slowly conversations resumed. Ethan turned to Amara, his expression softening. Are you okay? She was trembling, but not from hurt anymore. From something else entirely. You defended me. Of course I did. He was an idiot. No one's ever. Her voice caught. Daniel would have, but since him, no one stood up for me like that. Then everyone else was wrong. Ethan's thumb brushed across her knuckles. I meant every word. You're remarkable, Amara. Don't ever let anyone make you feel less than that. Something cracked open inside her chest, something she'd been keeping carefully guarded. This man, who owed her nothing beyond a contractual arrangement, had just defended her honor like she mattered, like she was worth protecting. Dance with me, Ethan said suddenly. What? Dance with me. Right now. Let everyone see that I'm proud to call you my wife. He led her to the dance floor as a slow song started. His arm came around her waist, pulling her close, and they began to move together. Amara was acutely aware of his hand on her back, the warmth of his body, the way he looked at her like she was precious. Thank you, she whispered. For standing up for me. Always, he said. I'll always stand up for you. They danced through the whole song, and when it ended, Ethan didn't let go. They stood there, swaying slightly, faces close enough that Amara could see the gold flecks in his eyes. The world narrowed to just the two of them, everything else fading away. He was going to kiss her. She could see it in his eyes, feel it in the tension between them. And she wanted him to, desperately, even though it terrified her. But the moment was interrupted by applause as the band finished their set. The spell broke and they stepped apart, both breathing harder than dancing warranted. We should go, Ethan said, his voice rough. It's late. The ride home was charged with unspoken words. Ethan's hand rested on the console between them, and Amara's was inches away, neither quite brave enough to close the distance. When they arrived home, Mrs. Rosa reported the kids had been perfect angels and were sleeping soundly. They stood in the foyer again just like after their first charity event, but everything felt different now. Amara, Ethan started. I know, she said quickly. I know what almost happened. I'm not sorry it almost did. I'm terrified, she admitted. This wasn't supposed to happen. We weren't supposed to feel anything. But we do. He stepped closer. I do. And I think you do too. I do, she whispered. But Ethan, I can't lose someone again. I can't survive that. I'm not going anywhere. You can't promise that. No one can. Tears gathered in her eyes. Daniel promised me forever and then he was gone. How do I trust in forever again? Ethan reached up, gently wiping away a tear that had escaped. You don't have to trust forever. Just trust right now. This moment. And then the next one. We'll figure out the rest as we go. It's not that simple. Nothing worth having is. His hand cupped her cheek. I'm falling in love with you, Amara. I didn't plan it. I didn't want it. But it's happening anyway and I can't stop it. I don't want to stop it. Her breath hitched. Ethan. You don't have to say it back. You don't have to feel the same way. I just needed you to know. No more pretending this is just an arrangement. Not for me. Before she could respond, before she could process what he'd just confessed, he stepped back. Good night, Amara. He walked away, leaving her standing alone in the foyer, her heart racing and her mind spinning. He loved her. This man who'd saved her from desperation, who'd given her children a home, who'd become part of their family, loved her. And the terrifying part was that she was falling for him too. The morning after the gala, Amara woke early, Ethan's words echoing in her mind. I'm falling in love with you. She'd barely slept, lying awake thinking about what that meant, what she felt, what she was willing to risk. She found him in the kitchen, already dressed for work, drinking coffee. When their eyes met, something passed between them, an acknowledgement of what had been said, what couldn't be unsaid. Morning, he said carefully. Morning. They were saved from awkward conversation by Nina bounding into the room, full of energy and questions about her upcoming dance recital. Caleb followed, quieter, but he smiled at Ethan, that easy companionship they'd developed evident in how he sat next to him at the counter. Life continued, but everything felt different. Ethan and Amara circled each other carefully, both processing the new reality of acknowledged feelings. He'd said he loved her. She hadn't said it back, couldn't quite make herself that vulnerable. But her actions spoke what her words wouldn't. She made his favorite meals. She left notes in his briefcase. She stayed up late to talk with him about his day. They were dancing around something huge, both terrified of what would happen if they actually reached for it. 2 weeks after the gala, Vanessa reappeared. She showed up at the house unannounced, sweeping past Mrs. Rosa with the confidence of someone who'd been there before. Amara was in the living room with the kids when Vanessa walked in, dressed impeccably in a white designer outfit, looking like she belonged in a magazine. Hello, Vanessa said, her smile sharp. I hope I'm not interrupting. Nina looked up from her coloring book. Who are you? A friend of Ethan's. Is he home? He's at work, Amara said, standing. Can I help you with something? Actually, I came to talk to you. Vanessa settled onto the couch like she owned it. I think we got off on the wrong foot at the gala. Amara doubted that but waited to see where this was going. I wanted to apologize, Vanessa continued. I may have been a bit cold. The truth is Ethan and I have a long history and seeing him married so suddenly was a shock. But I've had time to think and I realize you're just doing what you need to do to survive. I respect that. The words were polite but the tone was condescending. Amara felt her spine straighten. I appreciate your understanding. The thing is, I know Ethan. I know what he needs in a partner. Someone from his world, who understands the social obligations, the business dynamics. Someone who can stand beside him as an equal. Vanessa's eyes swept over Amara, assessing. You're trying, I can see that. But you must know you're out of your depth. Mama, Nina said uncertainly, picking up on the tension. It's okay, baby. Why don't you and Caleb go play upstairs for a bit? Caleb, always perceptive, frowned but took Nina's hand and led her out. Once they were gone, Amara turned back to Vanessa. Say what you came to say. I'm trying to be kind, Vanessa said. You're clearly a good mother doing your best. But Ethan married you for practical reasons, to fulfill his grandmother's will. Once that obligation is satisfied, once enough time has passed for appearances, he'll need a real partner. Someone who can help him grow his empire, not just someone who needs rescuing. Is that why you're here? To convince me to leave? I'm here to plant a seed of reality. You're living a fairy tale and those always end. Vanessa stood, smoothing her dress. Ethan is a good man. Too good. He won't hurt you directly. But eventually he'll realize he made a mistake, that he tied himself to someone who holds him back. When that happens, it'll be harder on everyone if you've let yourself believe this is real. She walked to the door then paused. For what it's worth, I do think you love those children. That's admirable. But loving them means giving them stability, not false hope. Think about whether you're really doing them a favor by staying in a situation that can't last. She left, and Amara stood in the empty living room, Vanessa's words wrapping around her like chains. Was she right? Was Amara holding Ethan back? He'd built an empire, moved in circles she barely understood. He'd defended her at the gala, said he was falling in love, but what happened when the novelty wore off? When he realized his wife couldn't network properly, didn't know the right people, came from nothing? She thought about Daniel, about the life they'd planned together. Simple but happy. They'd been equals, partners in every way. With Ethan, she'd always be the one who needed help, who couldn't contribute equally to his world. The doubts that Vanessa had planted grew roots, spreading through Amara's thoughts like poison. That evening, Ethan noticed her distance immediately. What's wrong? Nothing. Amara. Vanessa came by today. His expression darkened. What did she say? That I'm out of my depth. That you need someone from your world. That I'm holding you back. Amara's voice trembled. Is she right? Absolutely not. But Ethan, look at us. You're a billionaire. You built an empire. You move in circles I don't understand, do business I can't help with. I'm just someone you rescued because you needed a wife on paper. You're so much more than that. He moved toward her, but she stepped back. Am I? Or am I just convenient? The grateful woman who'll never ask for too much because she's so busy being thankful. That's not fair. Isn't it? Be honest. If your grandmother's will hadn't required marriage, would you have ever noticed me? Would you have ever looked at someone like me twice? Ethan's jaw tightened. I can't answer hypotheticals. What matters is what actually happened. You came to me. I said yes. We built something here. We built an arrangement. It stopped being just an arrangement a long time ago, and you know it. Do I? Amara wrapped her arms around herself. Sometimes I think I'm living in a dream. That any moment I'll wake up back in that shelter and this will all be gone. You, the house, the safety. All of it. That's not going to happen. You can't promise that. Her voice broke. Life doesn't come with guarantees. I learned that when Daniel died. Everything can disappear in a moment. Amara, please. Ethan reached for her hand. Don't let Vanessa get in your head. She's jealous. She wants what we have. What do we have? Amara pulled away. A contractual marriage? A convenient arrangement? You said you're falling in love, but Ethan, I don't know if I can trust that. I don't know if I can trust anything. Then what do you want from me? I want. She stopped, tears streaming down her face. I want to not be scared. I want to believe this is real. But I don't know how. They stood in painful silence, the distance between them feeling vast. Upstairs, Nina called for Amara, needing help with something. Amara wiped her eyes. I should go. We're not done talking about this. Maybe we should be. She headed for the stairs, then paused. I think we both need some space. Time to figure out what this really is. She left him standing alone, and Ethan felt something crack in his chest. Vanessa had done exactly what she intended, planted doubts that fed into Amara's existing fears. And he didn't know how to fight an enemy that lived in the person he loved's own head. Over the next few days, Amara withdrew. She was polite, functional, but the warmth was gone. She stopped joining him in his study. She made excuses to eat separately. She built walls faster than he could tear them down. The kids noticed. Caleb asked what was wrong. Nina cried, sensing the tension. And Ethan felt helpless, watching the family they'd built start to fracture. He needed to do something. But what? How did you prove to someone that love was real when they'd learned through painful experience that nothing lasted? 3 days after Vanessa's visit, the distance between Amara and Ethan had become unbearable. They moved through the house like polite strangers, careful not to touch, avoiding eye contact. The kids were confused and unhappy, picking up on the tension even when the adults tried to hide it. Amara had started packing. Not overtly, but Ethan noticed. A box in her closet, clothes folded more carefully than usual. She was preparing to leave, to run before she could be hurt. And he didn't know how to stop her without pushing her further away. On the 4th night, Nina spiked a fever. Came on suddenly, the child burning up and crying. Amara found her at bedtime, immediately going into crisis mode. She gave Nina medicine, tried to cool her down with a damp cloth, but the fever wouldn't break. I'm calling Ethan, Mrs. Rosa said, seeing Amara's fear. He arrived within 20 minutes, having dropped everything to race home. He found Amara in Nina's room, holding the girl who was now shaking with chills despite the fever. How high? He asked, all business. 103.5. The medicine isn't working. Amara's voice was tight with controlled panic. I don't know what to do. We take her to the hospital. Ethan was already moving, scooping Nina into his arms. My car's faster. Let's go. They rushed to the emergency room, Amara in the back seat holding Nina, Ethan driving with controlled urgency. In the ER they were seen quickly, thanks to Ethan's name and insurance. The doctor examined Nina, ran tests, and determined she had a severe throat infection that needed antibiotics and monitoring. They admitted Nina for overnight observation, and Amara refused to leave her side. Ethan stayed too, neither willing to go while Nina needed them. They sat on opposite sides of the hospital bed, watching their little girl sleep fitfully, the monitors beeping steadily. At 2 a.m., Nina finally settled into a deeper, more peaceful sleep, her fever beginning to break. The nurse checked on her and nodded approvingly. She's through the worst. Rest will do her good now. Alone in the quiet room, Ethan finally spoke. You were good with her. Calm. I've had practice. Caleb got sick a lot when he was younger. I got used to managing medical emergencies alone. Amara's voice was hollow. I got used to being alone for everything. You're not alone now. Aren't I? She looked at him across Nina's bed. Ethan, what are we doing? This back and forth, this trying to be something we're not. We're not trying to be anything. We just are. But for how long? Until you realize Vanessa was right? Until you meet someone who actually fits your world. She wiped at her eyes. I can't keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. There is no other shoe. Ethan stood, moving around the bed to kneel beside her chair. Amara, I know you're scared. I understand why. But you can't let fear make decisions for you. I let desperation make decisions for me instead. I showed up at your office, desperate and shameless, and asked you to marry me. What kind of foundation is that for anything real? The honest kind. He took her hand, and this time she didn't pull away. You came to me with nothing but truth. You said exactly what you needed and why. Do you know how rare that is? Everyone in my life wants something but pretends they don't. You were different. You were different. I'm just a woman who was drowning and grabbed the life preserver you threw. You're a woman who fought for her children. Who had the courage to ask for help when you needed it. Who turned our house into a home. His grip tightened. Who made me feel things I thought I'd never feel. Who made me want to come home at night. Who gave me a family. Ethan. I love you, he said again, and this time the words held weight, certainty. Not because of our arrangement. Not out of obligation. I love you because of who you are. Your strength, your honesty, your kindness. The way you love those kids. The way you've let me into your life even though you're terrified. I love all of it. Amara's tears flowed freely now. I'm so scared. I know. Daniel promised me forever and then he left. How do I trust in forever again? You don't have to trust forever. Just trust today. Just trust that right now in this moment what I'm telling you is true. He moved closer, his hand cupping her face. I love you, Amara Crawford. And I'm not going anywhere. I love you too, she whispered, the words finally breaking free. I've been fighting it but I do. I love you so much it terrifies me. Then let it terrify you. But don't run from it. What if I lose you? What if you don't? What if we get years together? Decades? What if we get to grow old watching those kids grow up? Isn't that possibility worth the risk? Amara looked at Nina, sleeping peacefully now, then back at Ethan. This man who'd rushed home the moment he heard their child was sick. Who'd stayed up all night in uncomfortable hospital chairs because family meant showing up. Who looked at her like she was precious, worth fighting for. Yes, she said finally. It's worth the risk. Ethan smiled and it transformed his face. He leaned forward slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. When his lips met hers, it was soft, tentative, a question. She answered by kissing him back, pouring into it all the fear and hope and love she'd been holding inside. When they parted, both were breathing hard. I've wanted to do that for weeks, Ethan admitted. Me too. They sat together, hands linked, watching Nina sleep. As dawn broke outside the hospital windows, Amara leaned her head on Ethan's shoulder, and he wrapped his arm around her. They'd crossed the final line, admitted what they both felt. And somehow the terrifying leap felt right. When we get home, Ethan said quietly, we're going to do things differently. Different how? No more separate wings. No more pretending this is just an arrangement. He looked down at her. I want a real marriage. With you. If you'll have me. Amara smiled, exhausted but happy. I think I will. Nina stirred, opening her eyes. Mama? Daddy? The word daddy hit them both like lightning. Nina had never called Ethan that before, always used his first name. But now, seeing them together, she'd said it naturally, like it was obvious. Ethan's voice was rough with emotion. Hey, princess. How are you feeling? Better. You stayed. Of course we stayed. We're family. Nina smiled and closed her eyes again, content. Amara looked at Ethan, seeing the moisture in his eyes, the wonder on his face at being called daddy. And she knew bone deep that they were going to be okay. All of them. Together. The next few weeks transformed everything. When they brought Nina home from the hospital, fully recovered, things were different. Ethan moved his things to the east wing into Amara's room. It felt natural, right? They were finally living as a real married couple. The kids adjusted quickly, thrilled to see their parents because that's what they were now, actually happy. Caleb started calling Ethan Dad without prompting. Nina was already there, using the title like she'd been waiting for permission. Ethan and Amara navigated their new relationship with a mixture of excitement and uncertainty. They'd gone from strangers to spouses to co-parents to lovers, skipping all the normal stages. But somehow it worked. They knew each other's rhythms, habits, and quirks. They just added affection to the foundation they'd already built. Their first real date was dinner at home, the kids at a sleepover arranged by Mrs. Rosa. Ethan cooked badly, making Amara laugh until she took over. They ate by candlelight, talked for hours, and kissed like teenagers. It felt new and familiar all at once. "I can't believe we almost missed this," Amara said, curled against him on the couch later. If I'd let fear win. But you didn't. You stayed. You fought for us." She looked up at him. "You fought too. You didn't give up when I pushed you away." "Never." He kissed her forehead. "I've never been more sure of anything." The next major step came a month later. Ethan had a major business conference, the kind of event where every word was scrutinized, every appearance mattered. It was being held at a luxury hotel downtown, 3 days of meetings, presentations, and networking. Spouses were invited, expected even. "Come with me," Ethan said over breakfast. "To the conference?" "Ethan, I don't belong at something like that." "You absolutely do. As my wife. As my partner." He took her hand. "I want you there. And I want everyone to see what you mean to me." "What about the kids?" "Mrs. Rosa can handle them for 3 days. Or we bring them. There's childcare at the hotel." Amara hesitated, old insecurities rising. But then she looked at Ethan's face, saw how much it mattered to him, and nodded. "Okay, I'll come." The conference was everything she'd feared and more. The hotel was elaborate, the attendees all polished and confident. Amara felt out of place in her nice but not designer clothes, surrounded by people who spoke in business jargon she barely understood. But Ethan never left her side. He introduced her to everyone, not as an afterthought but as someone important. "This is my wife, Amara. She's brilliant and I'm lucky to have her." On the second day, Ethan was scheduled to give the keynote address. Amara sat in the audience, nervous for him. He was good at public speaking, she knew, but this was different. This was the industry's biggest event. Ethan started with business talk, discussing market trends and innovation. But midway through he shifted tone. "I want to talk about what really drives success," he said, his eyes finding Amara in the crowd. "Everyone here knows the metrics. Revenue, growth, market share. But I've learned something this year that's changed how I view everything. Success without people who matter is just numbers on a spreadsheet." He told their story. Not all the details but the essence. How he'd met Amara during a difficult time. How she'd asked for help with honesty that cut through years of cynicism. How she'd brought light back into his life, turned his house into a home. "I stood here last year talking about quarterly projections," Ethan continued. "And I went home to an empty house feeling like something was missing. This year I go home to family. To a woman who challenges me to be better. To children who remind me what matters. That's real success. Everything else is just details." He looked directly at Amara. "I love you, Amara Crawford. You saved me just as much as I helped you. And I want everyone here to know that you're not just my wife on paper. You're my partner, my love, my home. Thank you for taking a chance on us." The room was silent for a beat, then erupted in applause. Amara had tears streaming down her face, overwhelmed by the public declaration. He'd just told hundreds of people, business leaders and competitors, that he loved her. Not to fulfill a will or maintain appearances. Because he meant it. After the speech, people swarmed them. Many were genuinely happy, congratulating them. A few were cool, clearly disapproving. Jordan appeared, grinning. "Well, that was a hell of a statement," he said, clapping Ethan on the back. "Had to be said. Your competitors are probably scrambling, trying to figure out if this makes you stronger or weaker." Jordan winked at Amara. "My money's on stronger. You've humanized him. Made him relatable." "I just made him honest," Amara said. "Same thing." Vanessa appeared through the crowd, her expression unreadable. Amara tensed, but Ethan's arm tightened around her waist, steadying her. "That was quite a speech," Vanessa said to Ethan. "Very heartfelt. I meant every word." "I can see that." She looked at Amara, and for the first time, there was something like respect in her eyes. "I was wrong about you. I thought you were temporary, someone who'd fade away. But you're not. You belong with him." "Thank you," Amara said carefully. "I hope you're happy together." Vanessa's smile was small but genuine. "Truly." She walked away and Amara exhaled. That was unexpected. She saw what everyone else did. That we're real. Ethan turned Amara to face him. That I'm completely in love with you and not ashamed to tell the world. You certainly told them. Good. Now no one can doubt it. He kissed her, right there in the middle of the conference in front of colleagues and competitors. And Amara kissed him back, no longer caring who watched. That night, in their hotel room, they talked about the future. Real plans, not just getting through each day. I want to adopt them, Ethan said. Caleb and Nina. Officially. If that's okay with you. Amara's breath caught. You want to be their legal father? I already am their father in every way that matters. I want it to be official. Want them to have my name, my protection, everything. He cupped her face. I love those kids like they're my own because they are. You all are. My family. Yes, Amara whispered. Yes, adopt them. They'll be so happy. And I want more, Ethan continued. More kids. With you. If you want that. I do. I really do. They made plans deep into the night. Expanding Amara's foundation work, getting her more involved with the company's charity initiatives. Buying a vacation home where the kids could run free. Growing their family, building something that would last generations. And through it all, Amara felt the fear that had haunted her since Daniel's death finally loosen its grip. She couldn't control the future, couldn't guarantee nothing would go wrong. But she could choose to live fully now, to love without holding back, to trust that whatever came, they'd face it together. I love you, she told Ethan as dawn broke outside their window. So much. Thank you for not giving up on us. Never, he promised, pulling her close. This is forever, Amara. I know you're scared of that word, but I'm saying it anyway. You're my forever. And finally she let herself believe it. 6 months later, the garden was full of people. Ethan and Amara had decided to renew their vows, to have the wedding they hadn't had the first time. The courthouse ceremony had been necessary, practical. This was a celebration. Amara wore white, a beautiful dress that made her feel like a bride for real. Nina was her flower girl in a purple dress she'd helped pick out. Caleb stood with Ethan as his best man, looking proud and grown up in his suit. Friends and family filled the chairs arranged on the lawn. Mrs. Rosa sat in the front row, crying happy tears. Jordan stood beside Ethan, grinning like this had been his plan all along. Business associates mixed with neighbors, old friends, creating a community that felt right. The judge who'd married them the first time officiated again, smiling as he spoke. We're here to celebrate Ethan and Amara, who've already been married for a year but want to reaffirm their commitment to each other. And this time, it's not about fulfilling requirements or meeting obligations. It's about love. Ethan's vows were simple. Amara, you walked into my life when I'd given up on finding real connection. You were honest when everyone else was performing. You're strong when you think you're weak. You made me believe in family again. I promise to love you, support you, and choose you every single day for the rest of our lives. Amara's turn. Ethan, when I came to your office that rainy night, I was looking for security. I found so much more. You gave my children a home and stability. But you also gave me partnership, respect, and love I thought I'd never feel again. You showed up when it mattered. You stayed when things got hard. I promise to trust you, to build with you, and to love you with everything I have. The judge pronounced them husband and wife again, and this time when Ethan kissed Amara, it held all the love they'd found together. The crowd cheered, Nina threw petals everywhere, and Caleb wiped his eyes, trying to hide that he was crying. The reception lasted into the evening. People danced, ate, and celebrated. Ethan and Amara barely left each other's sides, hands linked, smiles constant. At one point, Caleb and Nina found them. Can we talk to you? Caleb asked, suddenly serious. Of course. What's up? Ethan knelt so he was eye level with them. We talked, Nina said, and we want to know if we can call you Dad all the time now. Like officially. You already do, Princess. But like legal, Caleb clarified. Nina said you're adopting us. That you'll be our real dad. Ethan looked at Amara, who nodded, eyes wet. The paperwork goes through next week. So yes, I'll be your real dad, legally and officially. If that's what you want. It's what we want, Caleb said firmly. You're already our dad. Has been for a long time. Ethan pulled them both into a hug and Amara joined in, all four of them holding each other while the party continued around them. This was family. Not perfect, not traditional, but real and chosen and full of love. Later, after the kids were in bed, exhausted from the celebration, Ethan and Amara stood in their bedroom. The room they shared now, no more separate wings. It was a good day, Amara said, removing her earrings. The best. Ethan came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Mrs. Crawford. I like hearing you say that. Good, because I plan to say it a lot. He kissed her neck. For the next 50 years at least. At least, she agreed. They'd come so far from that desperate night in his office. From an arrangement born of necessity to a love that felt inevitable. They'd fought fear, doubt, and outside interference. They'd learned to trust again, to hope again, to choose each other every day. A year later, Amara stood in the foundation office she now ran, reviewing applications for the single-parent housing program she'd developed. It had helped over 100 families so far, giving them what Ethan had given her: a chance, security, and hope. Ethan appeared in the doorway with coffee. Thought you could use this. You're a mind reader. She accepted the cup, kissing him in greeting. It still gave her butterflies even after 2 years together. How's it going? Good. We have 5 families ready to move into homes next month. That's amazing. Pride filled his voice. You've built something incredible here. We built it. This is your funding, your support. Your vision, your passion. He sat on the edge of her desk. Speaking of building things, I have news. Oh. The adoption went through. Official as of this morning. Caleb and Nina are legally mine. Amara's hand flew to her mouth. Really? Really? They're Crawfords. Forever. His smile was brilliant. We're all legal now. A real family in every possible way. She threw her arms around him, crying happy tears. I can't believe it. After everything, we're really here. We really are. He pulled back slightly. And I have one more piece of news. More? I don't know if I can handle more. You're pregnant. Amara froze. What? How do you know? The test in the bathroom trash. You thought I wouldn't notice? He grinned. Were you going to tell me? I was waiting to be sure. It's early. Her hand moved to her stomach. But yes, we're having a baby. Ethan's expression shifted through shock, joy, and something deeper. A baby. Our baby. Are you happy? Happy doesn't cover it. He kissed her thoroughly. I'm everything. Excited, terrified, thrilled. When? 7 months, give or take. 7 months, he repeated, wonder in his voice. Caleb and Nina are going to lose their minds. They did. That evening, when Ethan and Amara told them about the baby, Nina shrieked with excitement, already planning what they'd need. Caleb was quieter, but his smile was huge. So I'll have a little brother or sister? He asked. You will, Amara confirmed. That's cool. I'll teach them stuff. Like soccer and chess. They're lucky to have you as a big brother, Ethan said, ruffling his hair. The months passed in a blur of preparation. They converted one of the spare rooms into a nursery, this time painting it yellow since they'd decided to be surprised by the gender. The kids helped pick out furniture, arguing good-naturedly about what the baby would need. Amara's foundation continued growing. She'd become a respected voice in social services, speaking at conferences and advising policymakers. The girl who'd stood desperate in the rain outside Crawford Industries was now changing systems to help others like her. Ethan had shifted his business focus too, prioritizing projects with social impact over pure profit. Jordan teased him about going soft, but even he admitted the company had never been more successful or more respected. When Amara went into labor on a Tuesday afternoon, Ethan was in a meeting with international clients. He dropped everything, racing to the hospital. Mrs. Rosa brought the kids later, and they all waited together, a family preparing to grow. Lily Amara Crawford was born at 11:47 p.m., healthy and perfect. When Ethan held his daughter for the first time, Amara watched him cry without shame, this strong man undone by love. She's beautiful, he whispered. Just like her mother. We made a person, Amara said, exhausted and happy. An actual person. We made a family, Ethan corrected. All of us together. Caleb and Nina were allowed in to meet their sister. They approached cautiously, awed by the tiny person in Ethan's arms. Nina gently touched the baby's hand, gasping when Lily's fingers wrapped around hers. She's holding me, Nina breathed. She knows I'm her sister. Of course she does, Ethan said. You're going to be the best big sister. They all sat together in the hospital room, this family that had started from desperation and become something beautiful. 2 years ago, Amara had stood in the rain with nothing but fear and hope. Now she had everything. A husband who loved her, children who were thriving, purpose in her work, and a future full of possibility. What are you thinking? Ethan asked, seeing her expression. That I'm grateful. For all of it. Even the hard parts that brought us here. She looked at their family all together. I'm grateful I was brave enough to ask for help. Grateful you said yes. Grateful we fought for this when it got scary. Me too. Ethan leaned over, careful of the baby, and kissed her. Best decision I ever made saying yes to you. Best decision I ever made was knocking on your door. Years later, when people asked how they met, Ethan and Amara always told the truth. She needed help. He needed honesty. They'd struck a bargain that became a partnership that became a love story. They didn't pretend it had been easy or simple. They acknowledged the fear, the doubt, the complications. But they also celebrated what they'd built together. A home filled with love, a family that chose each other every day, and proof that sometimes the most practical decisions lead to the most extraordinary outcomes. Kindness had led them together. Hope had kept them fighting. And love had made them forever. Their house on the hill, once cold and empty, now rang with laughter and life. Children playing in the gardens. Family dinners around a table that finally felt too small. Quiet evenings where Ethan and Amara sat together, hands linked, watching their family grow.